start anytime.
Okay. Good morning, ladies. My name is Lisa Merkel, and you are tuned in to the 2025 Fort Wayne ASG Mystery Quilt Project. Behind the camera this morning, we have Marilyn Morgan, who is the leader of our Van Wert So Creative group and also the president of Fort Wayne ASG. Now, if you have looked at the beginning videos that we did on fabric choices, and then you should also have received the cutting instructions on how to cut your fabric, then you're all ready to start. Hopefully you have everything cut, and what we're going to do today is give you clues to construct your blocks and to construct the quilt. So you look here. Here are the fabrics that I have chosen for my project. I have my 10-inch squares that have a little bit of everything in it. Some larger prints, some smaller prints, some solids, and these colors are purples, greens, and cream color. I've chosen a cream color to match for my background fabric. I have chosen a really dark, bright purple for my accent fabric. And then I have chosen one of the prints out of the layer cake to be my border fabric. Okay? So I like the contrast for the blocks with the deep color or the bright color for the accent fabric. It's going to pop. So you want a dark color, not really a pastel. It's not going to show as nice as the dark color. So, all right. So let's get to the sewing business of this. Okay? All right. So, to start our block construction, you have all of these strips cut. All right? I have just left you one strip of each here. I've been working on blocks here for a while, so I'm a little bit ahead of you. So the first clue here, we're going to use a 1/4 seam allowance, and we're going to sew 2-inch background fabrics, which for me is this cream, to the top and bottom of a 4-inch accent strip. So here's my accent, here's my background fabric. I have selvages on this, and I don't really care. I'm just going to sew them together. So let me get my right sides to my right sides here and come over to the sewing machine. All righty, there's my right side, my other right side. And you want, I've learned quite a few little helpful tips making this block. One is make sure you're using a standard seam allowance, okay? You're supposed to use a 1/4. You know how your machine is set up. Everybody's is a little different. I have some seam tape on here that I use. I have a tendency to run just a bit inside and do a scant. I suppose that's what they would call it, a scant 1/4 inch. So however you sew your seams, make sure you're doing them all the same, because if you have some that are wider than others, you'll be saying lots of unkind words to try to get these blocks put together. So, okay, I got to take my shoe off. I can't dry, I have to dry barefoot here. All righty, so let's get this baby going. Okay, here we go. I am not a fast sewer. So some of you will put the pedal to the metal and have this thing done in about 2 seconds. That is, I have mine on medium speed, because if I don't, I'm not paying attention, and then Lord knows what kind of a mess I got. I am sewing this, I'm just lining my raw edges up and just letting the machine pull the fabric through. I'm not pulling on it. I'm not, I'm not trying to stretch it. I'm just kind of letting the machine pull it through. And all I'm trying to do is make sure that I got my raw edges lined up so that I'm going to end up with a good strip set here when I'm done with my seam allowance the same. Okay, there's one side. And thank you. I was going to say, and because I'm in the living room and not my sewing room, I didn't grab that other piece. So I'm going to the other end here. And I'm going to sew this other strip. Seams lined up, and pay attention to my seam, my seam guide over here, so that I'm sewing this strip on the other side with the same amount of seam allowance. And like I said, I'm just kind of letting the machine feed the fabric through. I'm not pulling or pushing on it. I'm just trying to hold it so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you get both of those background pieces sewn onto the 4-inch accent fabric. Now, Marilyn wanted to look at my presser foot. I don't use the 1/4-inch presser foot because you can't see it because of the seam tape, but my machine is set up with a 1/4-inch on my bobbin plate here. It pretty much tells me or gives me a place to feed in. Here's my 1/4-inch here, and I also have needle placement on my machine. So right now my needle's in the middle position, but I could go one way or the other side of that if I needed to. But yeah, I don't use the 1/4-inch foot, probably because I have always sewed with a machine that just had a regular foot. So that's what it looks like. It's just a regular, I think the machine calls it like the everyday, every whatever foot.
Okay, get down there closer. Okay, thank you.
So that is kind of always the foot that I have used with this.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to take this to the ironing board and press this open.
I'll be editing that out too.
Yeah, well, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so we want to press to the dark side. Come on. So let me try my best to lay this at an angle that when I'm pressing this, and I'm going to run right off the edge, I'm pressing this seam to the dark side. And if that doesn't always work, then I turn it over to the back. All right, well, see, some of it did until we got down here, and then it's a little funky. But I like to make sure that my seams lay down good.
Steam or no steam?
I always use steam. It just depends on your preference. Some quilters never use steam. Some quilters use steam all the time. So mine's on steam just because.
That's the way you like to do it.
Well, that's, yeah. When I had to iron clothes, Mom always made me use steam, you know? So when I started quilting, it was like just automatic to use steam. Yeah, and I try not to pull it.
Right.
Okay, I try to lay it over. I try not to pull it. Boy, I'm dripping this morning. I do, though, when I'm doing these sets, like to look and make sure that I have the seams have not, I don't want to say rolled under, but I want to make sure they're crisp.
Right.
And that I don't have, especially with this project, I have found that, like right here, I had to pull on that a bit because my seam, it was tucked under, I guess is the word I want to use, was tucked under a bit. So you want to make sure that you've got a good edge here, that it's pretty well pressed over, that you're not kind of pressing it over the top of your sides. So, all right, we have our first strip done here. So now we've made our first one here. We've got it sewn together. We have pressed it open. We've pressed our seams to the dark side. And the reason for that is with this light fabric, you could see the seam sticking out or okay, sticking out here if you pressed it the other direction. And personally, I don't like that. So you're gonna make a total of 4 of these. On your cutting, you did enough cutting that you should have fabric for 4 sets of these. Yeah, I'm doing this based on the quilt size, so everything is going to be the same for the most part. For the wall hanging side, it's just your fabric is smaller. Your strips are smaller. Your 10-inch blocks are not 10-inch blocks. So now, there is one additional unit. You're going to do 4 of these plus they had you cut 1 additional. So you're going to have this square and you're going to have these 2 little pieces. So you're going to basically do the same thing. You're going to sew this down this way. You're going to sew this one here like this. Press it open and you're going to have one additional square here. Now you're going to take your 4 sets here that you have sewn and we're going to cut them. Okay? So, let me see where I want to start this, where I want to put this. I have to cut off my bad end here. So let's trim off this selvage here. And by the way, this is the Missouri Star rotary cutter. And this thing is the cat's meow. It just cuts like butter. It's got ball bearings in it, so it rolls really nice. So if you have not found a cutter that you really like, I would suggest you try one of these. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Maybe it'll be on a daily deal.
That's true. Every once in a while, they do have their tools on a daily deal. Okay, so let's cut off that selvage, throw it somewhere. Okay, now we need to cut these into 4-inch blocks. And these will be called A units. So 2, 3, 4. I'm kind of real, Jenny Doan, when she does her demos, she just cuts these things so quick, and I'm standing here for 10 minutes trying to get mine.
Yeah, but she's got an unlimited fabric supply.
Well, that's true. So you're just going to cut these into 4-inch segments that is going to be your block A when we start to put the block together. And you're going to cut all of these from the 4 strip sets that you did. And where'd I throw him? I've got the one little strip set here, the one little extra. So by the time you cut all of these, you should have 41 A segments or A blocks. So let's recap what we did here for clue 1. All right. We used a 1/4-inch seam allowance, or whatever seam allowance you use. Make sure it's uniform for every piece of this that you're putting together. Otherwise, your blocks aren't going to match up well. So we took a 2-inch background strip and sewed it to the 4-inch accent fabric. And we did that on both sides. All right. We pressed to the dark side, pressed our seam to the dark side, and then we have cut these into 4-inch blocks. So by the time you get all of these cut and stacked up, you should have 41 blocks that look like this. Okay, now for you that are doing the wall hanging size, this is what your block's going to look like. It's much smaller. Your middle is...
Well, it's 2-inch cut.
Okay, a 2-inch cut for this.
And those are 1.25 inch cut.
And those are 1.25 inch cut. And you're going to sew your strip set together just like we did here.
Same way.
Exactly the same. It's just going to be on a smaller scale. So that's what your blocks should look like for the first clue for the wall hanging.
And
25 of these blocks?
right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, ladies. We'll be back in an hour, and you should have all this done and ready to roll. Happy sewing.
Okay, let's